welcome to another episode of the Swords and Sports Podcast, one man's journey to read 52 fantastic fantasy books in 52 fantastic weeks and create 52 podcasts documenting the experience. I'm your host, Mike Mogues, the man embarking on this journey, one man against all time. And this week, I'm joined by British Fantasy and Dragon Award nominated author and possibly my best friend, Cameron Johnston, to talk about his book, The Traitor God. The interview is coming up right after the book details, so stick around. And let me tell you, you're going to want to stick around because Cameron is an incredible person. I liked him so much that I asked him to come back the next week for a duology podcast extravaganza. This would be part one of that. As a quick self-promo, you can find this podcast on all your podcast listening platforms, and you can find the full videos on the YouTube channel. Both of those are Swords and Sports. I'm having a ton of fun putting out the videos, even though they're mad work, but I feel like it's adding something to the show. So I hope you guys are all supporting, and if possible, subscribe to any of those things. Subscribe to all of them. What a crazy idea. And then one day, Brandon Sanderson will come across it, and he'll be like, no way am I doing that show. For all details about upcoming episodes, including what books are going to be featured, you can check me out on Twitter. The handle is Swords and Sports. It's Swords and Sports for everything, in case you're wondering. And if you're wondering how I got that handle for everything, it's because it's a fucking terrible name. And if you're looking for clips of the show, you can find it on Instagram as well. Guess what that handle is? Let's get into these book details. The book is The Traitor God. The author is Cameron Johnston. The series is The Age of Tyranny. It was published on, I don't have that info off the top of my head, but it was published in 2018, so that was fun. The publisher is Angry Robot, and I make an incredible Angry Robot joke in part 2 of this that is just the perfect teaser. It is 432 pages on the paperback edition. I said addiction. I was addicted to this book. Absolutely. I read all 432 pages. I would wake up, I'd start reading it till I went to sleep. And since it was only 432 pages, that was like a 3-day endeavor. And the books in the series, it's a duology, which I think is one of the most underutilized amounts of books in a series ever. And I hope more people do it. So, book 1 is The Traitor God, obviously, and book 2 is The God of Broken Things. This book was nominated for 2 of the fucking biggies, and not biggies like Biggie Smalls is the... Alright, another rap joke that no one's gonna ever get. British Fantasy Award for Best Newcomer nominee, and Dragon Award nominee, which he was nominated alongside a future guest of this show, Brandon Sanderson. As a quick heads up, you all know it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. This podcast contains spoilers for Cameron Johnston's The Traitor God. If you have not read the book, consider this your warning. And if you didn't heed this warning, that's on you. Without further ado, my best friend, Cameron Johnston. It is another week, and I am beyond excited because I am joined by the one and only Cameron Johnston, author of The Age of Tyranny duology, and his new book coming out soon, which I think I see in the top left of my screen, I think behind his right shoulder, The Maleficent 7. And he's here to talk about The Traitor God. So Cameron, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Are you aware that you share a name with your doppelganger, who is a punter in the NFL, which over in the United States is nothing to do with you?
Yeah, if you do a Google search, that's the one that shows up first. Now, if you search for Cameron Johnston author, you get me.
Do you ever think that anyone ever asks him, like, when is the Maleficent 7 coming out?
Somehow I think he might be a little bit more popular.
You never know. Depends what world you're in. I was reading about I think this was your first ever written interview, and you expressed your desire to one day hopefully have earned enough through your books to buy some badass weaponry from from like Albanian swords or Castle Keep. Have you ever acquired one?
Not yet. No, I've not quite. they're the pricier end of things, you see. So you have to justify it.
What is the pricier? Like your significant other is going to divorce you pricier, or like?
Well, let's see. If we're going to do it in dollars, you're probably looking at about $2,000.
Holy shit!
Yeah. But you see, I've got a couple of cheaper things. Don't get me wrong. Like I've got an axe, I've got a dagger, I've got a Regini feather sweat that I've actually trained with. That's like a blunt kind of training longsword.
Okay.
So that's really durable because you're hitting each other with them, hitting swords, other steel swords, that kind of thing. Yeah. So working up to getting one of the really good ones, because I would rather if I get that Netflix deal, I'll be buying a really good sword. Yeah.
That Netflix money is coming. Let's keep.
Yeah, because everyone's got rent, mortgages. Yeah. You want like a new house. At the moment, I'm just in a kind of third floor apartment. I'm like, my garden, especially during COVID. Would have been good.
I think I would rather a sword than a house. That's just me. But you know what? I've been
but you see, so you can do cutting at the back garden. Yeah, that's when you cut your balls and your fruit and everything. But you need a garden for that.
I mean,
I've got it all worked out.
You're a mastermind in this whole thing. My question, I was looking it up. How badass is historical medieval martial arts?
It's something that's really taken off over the last kind of 10 years. It's really become massively more popular. There's clubs all over the UK. There's clubs all over the US. There's actual world championships. There's like massive competition called Swordfish. They do kind of tournament rules. It's very different to kind of Olympic fencing, or even a sport like kendo. So it's and there's been a lot of kind of what do you call it, kind of reconstruction archaeological wise. There's a lot of people have got digital access to all the manuscripts from the 15th century, and they've all just been recreating all the techniques.
Yeah, I was curious what it was specifically, and I was YouTubing it, and I was watching this 16-on-16 USA against Poland. I was like, this is crazy.
Oh, yes. I've seen that one. Yeah. That's something slightly different.
Okay.
That's a lot more kind of full force.
Because I'm thinking if you ever run out of marketing ideas, we just got to film you in one of those as you're just throwing your book at people as the weapon.
I'd have to reinforce the book, I think. Just wrap the cover around a big block of steel. There we go.
What's your best weapon? I saw that you used the German longsword, the Scottish broadsword, and you're working on the quarterstaff.
Yeah, one. It was by far the most lethal weapon. Unfortunately, you can't really train with it so much because there's a lot of force to kind of in a quarterstaff. If you spin it around and accidentally hit someone in the knee, that knee's gone. So you can't really do full force sparring. Even if you're in full plate mill, for example, that'd still be dangerous. So, but yeah, it's very technical, very much fun. The thing I've done most of is the longsword. When I first kind of started getting into it, I was like, oh, right, okay. So, it's like the movies. You're either like battering each other or you're doing all the fancy flourishes, and you're like, no, they're both dead within a second if fighting somebody that actually knew how to use it. It's like all these fights last like 3 seconds max, and then someone's dead.
Yeah, I don't think that doesn't make a very entertaining duel, though.
No, and then you watch something like The Princess Bride, and you're like, oh, they're actually using actual techniques. Interesting.
Right. It's funny how some technique can actually make it look cool. So you've been blacksmithing as well. Are you going to make your own? Have you been making your own weapons?
Well, not yet. Things kind of got interrupted.
Of course.
So I was going through there's a little place down by me they do the historical European martial arts, they do archery, and they've also got a blacksmithing station. So I was taking lessons there. So I did like an iron toasting fork. I did it's kind of letter opener, so it's kind of like a knife but legal. The thing that I enjoyed the most, there was two things in separate ways. First one is I did a Viking fire striker.
What the
So
heck is that?
it's like a little kind of, it's almost like a knuckle duster,
What?
but you strike the flint off it, and it makes sparks, and that's how you light your fires.
I need to
And
see
the
one
other,
of those.
well, I can show you actually.
Oh my God, you got it on you? This is turning into a threatening podcast over here. Oh,
That's it there.
That thing is badass.
And here's the little flint. So you would just you'd strike it down like that, and it would make sparks. And then you would put it onto your tinder, and off you go.
Cameron is making a good case for why everybody should be watching this on YouTube. If they're not, thank you very much for that.
The other thing I've made that I very much enjoy is the bottle opener.
Oh yeah. So is there anything more manly than opening the bottle?
It improves beer. Yeah, it's like,
right.
I forged this myself. I've earned this beer.
Kind of makes everybody who just uses a can soft. Look at that. You're just outmanning everybody.
Yeah, there we go.
Can you make me a dissever?
It's at some point. It would just be lethal though, because you have to maintain your weapons. You have to oil them, or put a thing called like Renaissance wax on it, which is what they use in the British Museum to preserve things. But you have to like kind of polish the blade. And there's lots of people not paying attention that have just sliced themselves open.
Yeah, that would be me in 2 seconds. First off, if I ever was like not lazy enough to actually clean the thing, the second I would do is I'd look at Twitter and then just cut myself right on my hand.
Yes. But there's through some historical European martial arts, there's been some very impressive bruises, I can tell you.
I can imagine.
Even you're not using steel, because you get kind of like synthetic ones as well, like training swords. But if you get a good whack of one of those, oof.
What's the worst injury you've ever got doing it?
It's probably just a massive bruise. Yeah.
Well, that's a serious injury.
It's just like the length of my leg. Yeah.
Sounds horrible. Is this fun?
Yes. You're hitting people with swords. What's better?
But you're getting hit.
Well, you've got to take it if you're giving it.
All right. I mean, I guess.
I mean, that's like when you're doing proper full force sparring. Obviously, there's kind of like lower speed training and things like that, and you don't really get injured from that at all. The most I've ever gotten is a bruise. So
I mean, you don't get injured. I would get injured. Very impressive. You had written an article about the efficacy of swords in actual combat and why they're so popular in fantasy. And I thought that my two major takeaways from that was that one, swords are cool because they look badass when you're wearing them.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the other is that they kind of look like dicks.
So, I mean, there's a reason most swords have, male names if you're going to give them a name.
How important, how much do you think that's played into why that is the common fantasy weapon?
Well, I mean, I think it's one of the weapons that survived, up until kind of like World War I. All the officers wore swords, and then they started getting shot in the head by, snipers from a distance. So they stopped carrying swords.
Right.
Understandably. But I mean, all the other things kind of, unless it's ceremonial use, like pikes and things like that, most of them fell into disuse. Whereas swords were always for the officers, the nobles. Quite often they were beautiful items as well, showing off people's status. I think they've just been in continued use, and the things of beauty. Plus, swords are just cool.
Right. I mean, that cannot be stated enough. They are cool. You've put in a ton of research on this stuff, and one of the things that always entertains me and I find funny is kind of the random research that goes into books. And some of the things that you looked up, and I want to know if you could give me any facts on this, are like medieval tanning practices and medieval sewaging.
Yeah. I mean, lots of things in the medieval period involved body products. So if you, you need a lot of urine if you're doing tanning and leather. And
Really?
people, yes, they used to go a bit and collect it in pots, and they used to take it down to where they were doing the tanning.
Was that a good job? Like you were the local pee collector?
Probably not. No. But it's just one of these things. It's like everything's so industrialized these days. You never really consider how it used to be done. And then I was doing research, and the word spinster came up. And I was like, "Oh, right, I know what a spinster is."
Right.
No, I don't. Spinster was actually a wealthy, very skilled,
What?
and yeah, and then because men, I guess, it became an old woman they didn't want. But actually, originally meant, like an expert that was quite wealthy. So I read things like that. The word, you're like, oh right, okay, this is weird and fascinating and all very human.
Right. And I think that we kind of like things become like myth and stuff, and we forget like things start off as pretty practical and just like daily
Yeah.
parts of life that have transformed. Like I didn't know that you needed to collect people's pee in order to like tan things. That is disgusting.
Well, I mean, people used to pick up all the horse dung and things like that as well, and you're like, oh, that's a good public service, and then you're like, no, they were actually putting on the farms, free fertilizer.
Yeah, that's true. I actually have questions later on in this podcast about fertilizer, but
Oh, okay.
we'll wait for that. One of the things that I found interesting and I wanted to know more about was, how does holding a chunk of meteorite stimulate imagination?
Well, it's like 3 billion years old or something like that, and you just imagine it. It's been all through the solar system, around various planets, and then eventually it's gone through our atmosphere, and it's plowed up some field in Russia somewhere, and it's just the whole history of the thing. It just kind of opens your mind up. At least that's the way I find it.
I is part of the initiation into the Glasgow Science Fiction Writers Club. They give you a piece of the same meteorite, and you guys all share that power.
I wish I would have got a free meteorite.
If I find a meteorite, like a piece of a meteorite that came from the same one as yours, will I have some of your powers?
Who knows? Maybe I might collect some more in the meantime, so you have still be playing catch up. So that might be how it works. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe Brandon Sanderson sitting with a whole big chunk of it somewhere.
Listen, Brandon Sanderson, one day he will be on this podcast, and I will ask him that question for you.
I'm sure he'll be very puzzled. Yeah.
I think he'll probably hit the end call on this. I liked this idea, and I want to know how we get this made, of your epic training montage to publishing the Traitor God, of you writing these short stories.
Oh, yeah. Well, I actually wrote 2 novels way back in the day, in the kind of early 2000s. Totally unpublishable, so they're not going anywhere. And then I was kind of like, I kept getting to a certain point where I knew something was wrong with a scene or a character or a bit of the book, but I just didn't know how to fix it. So what I did is I found the local science fiction writers group and joined that. And I think it was the second time they had a gap, so I submitted one of my short stories. It was like a space opera.
Yeah.
Like a guy's spaceship kind of dissolved in Earth orbit during a war. Unfortunately, one of the guys there was an astronomer, like a proper job astronomer. And I had written all this space stuff, and he's just sitting picking through it, going wrong. No, this is the movie bit. People don't freeze immediately when they exit the spacecraft. Things like that. And it's like, why are the stars twinkling? There's no atmosphere. And I'm like, oh.
This guy sounds like a real downer at the dinner party.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's really interesting because it's like, damn it, you're right. But the way the group does it, it's really constructive, and they buy you a pint of beer afterwards.
I mean,
So,
you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, it dulls the pain.
Listen, I'll take a bunch of criticism if you throw like a donut my way.
I'll bear that in mind. Yeah, so I wrote a bunch of these short stories. I just wanted to level up, and
right.
there came a certain point where I felt, right, now I feel like I can do a novel justice. Plus, if you get a short story wrong, you can just throw it away, and it's just a short story.
Right.
You've not spent a year and a half on it. So there's that too.
What would the training montage like? What would the music be? It's very important that a good training montage, just like you scrambling away on these short stories, like just has like a great music.
Let's see, 2 Steps from Hell. Yeah,
okay. I feel like that
epic fantasy music. Yeah. So I'll listen to that a fair bit when writing scenes.
Right.
Interspersed with kind of things like like if you get a nice quiet scene, a bit of Lord of the Rings maybe.
That would get me too hyped up. I had a Lord of the Rings question, and not one that you're probably expecting. In your article on Grimdark, you were kind of making like a joke about your twist on Lord of the Rings, where Gandalf is merely a crack pipe addict. And I want.
Yeah, if you're going to go grimdark, that's the way it's going to go.
Right, and you were kind of like making fun of it as an idea, but I like it.
Yeah, if you look at Radagast and the Hobbit films, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where they went with that guy.
Yeah, I don't know where they went to university, but whew. The hell of a frat house.
Got all these crazy ideas. I know. So if we can't make that short story, that was my other question about these unpublished manuscripts. Can I have one and pretend I was you? Just like a worse version of you.
A lot worse. A lot worse.
I still think that's
totally
unpublishable.
Totally unpublishable.
How about your fanfic of the Transformers? That's unpublishable. Yeah.
None of that exists anymore.
What do you mean?
Well, I would have been like like 10 or something, 11, 12, that kind of age.
I bet you your writing abilities at 10 years old surpass my writing abilities at 28.
I'd need to read some of your stuff first.
I don't know. I'm reading through my own questions and I'm thinking this is not good.
I just seem to remember there was lots of explosions. So, yeah, that's my main take from it.
Speaking of explosions, did you really find the World War II mine on the beach?
Yes.
How the hell did you find that?
When I was about 10, I was on holiday with my mum and dad. We were walking down the beach, and then there was just a massive sea mine just sitting there on the beach, half buried in the sand. So, I was like, ooh, run up. And the whole bunch of other kids started running up and started poking it with sticks. Yeah. And then all the parents were like, no, away from there.
Was it an active mine?
Who knows? I hope not.
You guys just left it there? What do you think happened? Did you hear
I think like scared or something came later on, and pretty quickly.
What would you have
had
done?
A look at it.
What would you
but
have
the
done?
thing is, between England and Scotland and Ireland, there's like a massive strip of World War II munitions that are still there.
That doesn't seem safe.
Oh, no. But every so often, our Prime Minister, Boris, keeps talking about, let's build a bridge to Ireland. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, let's build it straight across the big strip of World War II munitions. I'm sure that's perfectly stable.
At least it would give you more motivation. If at 10 years old, finding a landmine inspired you to write Transformers fan fiction with explosions, what do you think a bridge exploding with landmines would inspire you now?
Ooh, it depends if I'm on it or not, I suppose.
I think I'm seeing a theme here, and I can't exactly identify it, but I like it.
Well, I think it all feeds into the kind of, especially in my latest one.
Coming soon.
The Maleficent 7. It is just unashamedly fun and madcap. And I don't mean necessarily in the humorous way. It's just gleeful.
I have a feeling that gleeful for you and gleeful for other people are two very different sides of the coin.
Well, if you're going to write about 7 evil characters, you've got to have fun with it.
I mean, I think when we get into some of these the Traitor God questions, I think we're going to find out exactly what your sort of fun means. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Referring to the fertilizer question before, just how good of crops can you grow from Mage's shit?
Well, I mean, if mages are going to have magic in their blood and their bones and the body parts and stuff, and I was going, right, okay, it's going to be a very kind of visceral magic, very embedded in the flesh. And I was sitting there one day and I was doing research on medieval society, and I came across the bit about sewage and like tanning and stuff, and I was like, well, hang on a minute. So if these mages have magic in the bodily fluids, they still go to the toilet. What then happens to it? So then I was like, right, okay, those sewers are going to be epic. Then I was like, right, okay, so they used to collect the urine for tanning. That would be a resource in itself. So they would take their piss and their shit from these mages, and they would put it all in the surrounding fields and just have massive bumper crops to fuel this massive city.
I love this idea.
This works. See, research does pay off sometimes.
Just following the train of your magical mind here, we went from looking up medieval sewages to what if mages took shits and that's how you could create awesome crops. I love
it. I think it was just it was just kind of one of those random thoughts that just struck me, and I was like, oh yeah, this works. This has to go in.
That would mean that people would be very interested in, like, giving mages like gas station food.
Oh yeah, but I would imagine you'd get different results, perhaps.
Maybe I'll lay off the shit and piss questions here. Are the smilers?
I realize it was that sort of podcast.
It is, and but there's other gross stuff that I'd like to talk about. So
you go right ahead.
Are the smilers all doing a cosplay of Heath Ledger's Joker?
It goes back to this is going to sound bad, but it goes back to my school days.
Oh God, I don't like this. Please turn this one around.
There used to be these urban legends. I'm sure they had it in all big cities in the UK, where there's these bad people, and they would get a razor blade and they'd stick it in someone's cheek and cut it up in a smile, just to kind of mark them. And it was this urban legend that happened to a friend of a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, okay, let's put that in as well. Yeah. There's no coming back from that, especially if you don't have plastic surgery.
Yeah, that's like I guess the equivalent of that is like a face tattoo. I mean,
exactly.
You're committed to what you're trying to be with that thing.
Yeah, good luck getting a job after that kind of thing. You're in it for life.
It kind of does, but you know what? At least you're part of the crew, and there's something to be said about acceptance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're not that bad. And a kind of grimdark adjacent, but yeah.
You're right. Well, I mean, I guess you could always have a role in a grimdark book, and that's something.
It's an occupation, however brief.
Everybody's got it. Yeah, I mean, especially in this book. What are the Smilers' obsession with Edrin's dick?
Oh, well. It's more kind of, it's from his point of view. He's kind of thinking that, he's kind of like ruggedly handsome. It's one of these things, you get an unreliable narrator who tends to assume things.
Right. Where, I mean, look, I look at myself every day and I say, you're not that bad looking. It's a lie. Unreliable narrator.
I think we all do that sometimes.
Yeah, and then the other end of that coin isn't so great either. You're not that good looking, and that's just bad self-confidence.
Yeah. What we really should just do is going, you're okay.
There's something to be said for striving for mediocrity.
Yeah. You're not going to be disappointed, hopefully.
You do a great job of the fantasy filth, which is one of my favorite things in fantasy books, which is
Mm.
either just creative swear words that are
Hmm.
either made up or good combinations of them. And I want to
Oh
go
yeah.
down a list of some of my favorites from the Traitor God.
Right. Okay.
The first one, and this one gets used quite a few times, and I think it's pretty solid, is cockroach.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Most of the swear words tend to be female orientated. So I'm
Right.
like, yeah. So when you've got a magical society, um, magic's the great equalizer. Both men and women have magic. You're going to have a lot more male kind of swear words and curses.
Right.
So that's kind of where I was going with that. Plus, it's just fun.
It is fun, like witless scrotum scraping.
Yeah.
Sheep shagging's a good one. I mean that's pretty gross.
Okay. Again, it goes back to the kind of the schoolboy parlance.
What school did you go to?
Must be a UK thing. It's usually about it's from them from that side of the north, or it's the Welsh or the Irish or the English, or there's always someone you could make fun of, and they were always
Right.
making fun of you as well.
That's true. You never know what's coming on the other side. And then I liked Boil Brains Whelp. That's like mild compared to some of the
Oh
other
yeah.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then my three favorites, Shit Weasels is very funny.
Oh yeah. I just that mental image. Yeah.
And then, then we've got Old Boney's Balls. And then
Oh yeah.
and then Old Boney must have got off at some point because he became Old Boney's Barren Balls.
Yep.
I feel like
you can have so much fun. I mean, I know most of the old curse words, all that kind of thing, weren't recorded in texts, but I can just imagine every town and village you go to, you'll have something different.
Right. I mean, nobody writes out a set list of all the good curse words. It's kind of like
Yeah,
urban legend, a friend of a friend at school.
and it's always like the educated classes that are writing stuff down. Oh, I can't write that down. That's far too salacious.
You don't think Cockroach could have made it into some edit between?
It probably has at some point, probably 17th century British Navy or something like that.
That's true. That's where all the best curse words come from. I hear is Edrin a sommelier? Because there's nothing more classy than swigging wine out of like a sack, basically, and being like, I had better off the cliffs of blah blah blah.
Yes. I mean, there's always someone that's going, oh yes, I know more than you. Look at me, I'm
Right.
so fancy.
Just odd to hear from Edrin. It's like his one area of expertise.
Yeah, he likes his drink. I mean, he's constantly on the move through all the towns and the villages and the occasional city, that kind of stuff. So he's sampled a lot of taverns.
That's so. I mean, if anyone is in a position to make that claim, it's him.
Exactly.
If you get drunk around the world, you tend to remember the best ones.
Exactly. Yeah. Remember those fondly.
for the flesh crafter modifications. Now, you made this seem like it was a bad thing because eventually you burn out and die. But how sweet must it be while you're all jacked up?
Oh yeah. It's oh, I'm so strong until you grow that third arm and
Third
doesn't
arm
obey your commands.
well, that's where it goes wrong. The third arm itself.
Yeah. So I mean, things are always awesome until they're not, and then it's like too late to go back.
Well, once you grow the third arm, it's not going to ungrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, if I say I had accrued a lot of debt, and it wasn't to Chase Bank, instead it was to some debt collectors, and they decided to craft my flesh, how high could they make me jump? Because I maintain that that's the best magical ability you can have.
Use your legs afterwards. That's the question.
But like, would it be one awesome jump?
Oh yeah. I'd be like you'd be like 30, 40 feet over that wall, and then you can't walk in the other side because all your muscles are just ripped apart.
You know what? I'd rather shoot for the stars and miss and break my legs and be paralyzed on the ground.
But then you hear all those stories about people in one moment, they somehow manage to disengage their safety limits on their muscles and, like help lift cars off people and things like that.
Does that really happen? I feel like that's another one of your friend
Yeah,
of a
no,
friend stories.
adrenaline does a hell of a lot of stuff. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that has happened. But what you never hear afterwards is like their 3 months of going, I've ripped stuff.
Because Cameron, I'm having trouble getting out of bed these days. I can't imagine after an adrenaline pump like that.
Yeah.
All adrenaline does is give me anxiety attacks.
But then you can exaggerate stuff in books, especially when magic comes in.
That's a good point. One of the things that I didn't like, and I hope that Etrin really wasn't doing this, is he really implanting memories of people sucking off dogs? Because I'd rather him just
he was just saying he could. Yeah. It depends whether they deserve something like that. Just imagine the confusion in someone's face after they try to mug Edrin and then they wake up and they just have this memory.
Now,
oh, what did I do? How drunk was I?
Because maybe this is where the difference is between your schools and my schools. I did hear a rumor of a friend that who did that, and that is not good.
That wasn't one of my skills. So there you go. We've got regional differences.
We're learning so much about each other.
This is the whole thing with like mind control and memory manipulation. It gets very, very dark very quick.
Right, but there's also some funny moments. I want to know, did you have a list of all the random things Edrin said to people to disarm them and confuse them so that he could slip into their minds easier? Because you'll never be half the man your mother is funny. But I want to know if there's a list somewhere of just ones you wrote out. You're like, these are good.
Do you know what? There's a mentalist called Darren Brown. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his TV shows. He does a lot of things where he persuades people to think certain things. And there's a bit in one of his books, and it's just about just breaking someone's train of thought. You just utterly confuse them with something that's just so far out of field. They're just like, even if they're about to hit you with something, you just say something, they're like, they've got a mental disconnect, and what? and they just kind of stop because they're trying to process it. Just because it's so weird and confusing and unnatural. It just takes them a second to try and figure it out. So I was like, right, okay, I can use that in a kind of momentary distraction way. That works.
Have you tried this in your personal life? You want to try it right now?
Well, I need to find something to attack me, but all right. Things you do for podcasts, eh?
Would the solution to the Scarabus problem being inventing some good roach spray?
Well, if we're going for spoilers, you'd have to, spray it in some
spoilers podcast.
Yeah. If you spray enough of it in someone's mouth, probably.
What about
if you're going to do that, I'm sure there's easier solutions.
Like calling a good exterminator. That problem could have been solved before it started.
Yeah, like a flamethrower. That'd do it.
Well, the Titan tried that on something else, and it didn't work out so hot.
Yeah, that's a cool monster. I really enjoyed that.
So, speaking of that cool monster, when Etrin calls the people who go to the roofs to watch the Titan fight the Magash Mora fools, they're not fools. They're probably gonna die anyway. You might as well watch an awesome show before you go down.
Well, I mean, they should be running away, but yeah, it's human nature, isn't it? Whoa, there's Godzilla and King Kong. Let's watch this. Yeah,
they're poor.
Be hiding in a bunker somewhere?
I don't know. There's nothing. It's hard to find good entertainment.
Yeah, I guess so. Certainly never seen something like that before.
Right, it's either that or get addicted to mage blood. There's not a whole lot of not a whole lot to do.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: when you don't have magic, you can borrow someone else's magic for a little while. You don't exactly have a resistance to it, so hence the mutations.
All Are there different flavors of Mage Blood? I can imagine getting it in like cherry Coke flavor.
You can cut it with whatever you want.
Maybe with that wine that Edrin knows that nobody else knows
Yeah.
about.
You don't know where that wine came from, how they made it,
Normally, one of the things I do on this show is I pitch novella ideas that everybody hates. But in honor of you and in your love of board games, I'd like to pitch a board game to you.
Okay. Always up for a board game.
So,
Except for maybe this one.
well, this one's gonna be fun. So it's the game Operation, right? Where you gotta like pull things out. If you hit the sides, it's like shocks you.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do Operation Artha Edition, and it's gonna be his open rib cage, and you're gonna try to pick out the things in his body that kills him, and you win.
Oh, right. Okay.
Do you have a Hasbro Connect? Because I'm trying to get this made.
That does sound interesting. I thought you might be going for the Grimdark edition of Operation. That's if you touch the sides, you actually get electrocuted.
Well, we can include that. Look at that.
Yeah.
This is what a good brainstorm.
Just attached to your card battery.
You know what? Somehow I think we could get that made with the right Kickstarter.
You probably could. As long as everyone that's buying it signs a waiver.
I gotta be honest, that's gotta be safer than a 10-year-old Cameron poking a landmine or a naval mine with a stick.
Well, just for reference, because it was a sea mine, it was about the size of a car, like a large SUV. So pretty big. It's one of those ones that's got all the little prongs sticking out.
Oh my God.
When it bumps into a ship, they depress and it goes boom, and kids are poking it with a stick.
I just have this vision of like a young you just poking it, do something, and then
yeah. Still fun.
Just kid stuff,
Yeah.
Does Cillian ever get dehydrated?
She can get water from wherever she wants. You just hold up a glass. Oh, look, water.
There's some moments where I feel like the author is reflecting their own opinion in this. And when Edrin is talking about Cillian having being one of those morning people that has like the rigorous morning routine and hating her. So are you a morning person?
Not especially, but I mean, I was inhabiting Edrin's mind, and yeah, he's more the kind of I've spent a couple hours in the pub at night. It's 6 a.m. Someone's up with their juice cleanse, jogging down the street, making noise. Just
I mean, those people are the worst. On a serious note, one of the goals of this podcast is to kind of break the traditional stereotypical view of fantasy, which is this kind of chosen one, male, defeats the dark one, saves the helpless princess, conquering and, finding the love of all the women, and read by people.
Good old magic farm boy.
Right. Read by people who don't leave their parents' basement, just pushing misogyny and all types of other all of their other insecurities on. What about your books kind of breaks that traditional mold?
Well, as I was saying earlier, magic, there's not separate magic between men and women. They both have the same kind of magic going through their blood and their bones. So it opens up a whole world of opportunities. You don't have the same kind of prejudice, religious or societal or otherwise. Because if those women have magic and someone tries to tell them what they can't do, you can't own property, you're going to stop me? Boom, there goes half your army. It's a massive evener. So it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever that it could be any other way.
Right. I do appreciate that, and that is a great point. I like to juxtapose that serious question with talking about one of my favorite things in fantasy, because this is the #1 fantasy podcast that talks about dick jokes in books.
Oh, right. Okay.
You've got some classics in here. Similar to the fantasy filth, I'd like to read some of my favorites.
There you go.
He launched himself forward, Joe clamping down on my crotch. Shit. How fucking terrifying is that?
Well, there's lots of things that I don't tend to read in fantasy books. Yeah, people are like, heroes are getting stabbed left, right, and center, but they're not usually getting stabbed in the crotch, for example.
Right.
Yeah, you never really see that. So I want I want you to include some things like that. Just mix things up a bit.
And that was early in the book. Let me tell you, it gets better.
That gets the flavor across all right.
Right. If someone's willing to bite off the dick in the third page of the book, where I'm reading the right book is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get across. Yeah. If you've reached that far, you know what you're getting.
Well, Edrin himself has some opinions. I was all for fighting dirty, but trying to bite a man's cock off was just plain wrong. I tend to agree. I'd rather, some other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to agree as well. But people are going to punch, kick, bite, whatever they can reach. So yeah.
This was a curious part. What kind of research went into learning what gird my loins was? Because I had no idea what that expression meant either. When I read that, I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Whatever that actually involved.
Oh yeah, that's just like a random diagram seen off Twitter one day. of like, this is how you gird your loins. So you're like, oh right, you get your robes and you just kind of tuck it up and tie it around, so you're not all flapping about in front of sharp objects. That's like, this makes a lot of sense. But I never knew what it meant until right now. It was always like, Robert E. Howard's Conan girding his loins, and you're like, okay. I imagine that he's just kind of like didn't realize he was wrapping things up, securing it.
I'm learning a ton. I think my favorite is this paragraph right here. I'm looking at my cock, Shadea. Must be a while since you've seen one. Oh my. Not at all. I dissected one last month. It was rather large in comparison to yours. That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that one as well. It's one of these lines that just gets that character across, and you're just like, yeah, I know exactly what she's like. There you
go. I think that was the best burn in the entire book.
She's taking no shit, especially from him.
And let me tell you, he's got a lot of shit that he's trying to throw at people.
Oh yeah, he's definitely got a massive chip on his shoulder.
Right. He's also got a crazy sword and a knife. Does Sever have bad people skills? It's not very nice.
No, it's not a people person.
I mean, these are the things it's saying. Feed me, you odious cretin. Fuck, kill, blood. Idiot, brainless bald ape. And Walker blood has matured well, which is just creepy. This thing is mean.
Well, it's a blood-eating sword. So, how good's it going to be, really?
I don't know.
That's like like getting a donut, and the donut's kind of looking back at you, going, You're not going to be terribly complimentary to this donut when you're sitting eating it.
I don't know. It could say some nice things like, you're doing a great job, Adrian, as it's slitting her throat. Nothing wrong with a little positive reinforcement.
Yeah, I don't think that would work on him, to be honest. He's not so good with the compliments.
No, he's not. But I will say, do you think that his campaign to change being called a tyrant to being called a peoplemancer is going well?
Probably not after this book.
No, I can't imagine that this is going to go well for him. Would he settle for Mindfucker?
Oh, I think so. I think that's massively preferable to him.
Because let me tell you, that's a great name.
That's have you ever seen Jessica Jones?
No, what is that?
It's like a Marvel miniseries before Disney Plus started doing them.
Okay.
One of the villains in season 1. So I'd finished this book, and then this TV show came out, and it's Kilgore, his name is, played with David Tennant, and he also goes in and manipulates people's minds.
Okay.
But Edrin's at least trying to be decent. He's not.
He's trying and doing a terrible job.
Yeah. But then he couldn't do anything otherwise. He's just, he's not exactly a reliable person.
No, but to be fair, he keeps getting thrown in some bad situations. He's trying to avoid having to save the city. It's not his fault that he's keeps getting thrown into positions where he's kind of forced to.
Oh yeah, He'd much rather just be living the quiet life, but no.
But no, God forbid, you gotta cut through a flesh tunnel of a giant, blob of.
It's gonna scar you. Yeah.
No amount of high quality wine is gonna burn those memories from you.
Definitely not.
Speaking of burning memories, that idea is awesome. I feel like that's like that movie Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind. I would just keep burning off memories till I didn't remember anything.
Well, the bad ones, surely. Or is that what you mean?
How quickly after finishing this interview...
There was that dog 5 years ago. That was cool. Don't remember anything else.
How quickly after this interview would you burn the memory of this out of your mind?
Oh, no. I've met far worse people at a con bar. You meet all sorts of people at the writing conventions,
I can't even imagine. I think that's a good note to end this on. I'm out of questions. Where can people find you?
Place at Cam Johnston on Twitter. You can get me on Facebook. You can Google me if you do Cameron Johnston author, and you won't get the footballer.
And where can people buy the books?
Absolutely everywhere. You can get it directly from the Angry Robot website, usually for a bit cheaper than Amazon, or you can get it at Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, Book Depository, all the usual places. And
the new book, when's it coming out?
Ooh, August 10th. So it's getting pretty close now.
Open up the calendars, everybody. Mark that one down. You're going to need to be getting that at midnight. Well, actually, I don't know if your bookstore is going to be open at midnight.
I don't know if it's going to be different hours in UK and US.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. But August 10th, anyway.
It'll be open that day. It'll be there.
I'm really looking forward to this one because, I get to write about 7 villains as the heroes. How can that not be fun?
How could that go wrong? Thank you so much.
How could it go wrong?
Find out August 10th. Thank you so much for taking the time out. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
There are some people that I know are just more manly than me. Cameron is one of those people. Not only was he poking bombs at the age of 10 that could have potentially exploded and killed him, he is blacksmithing his own weapons. He blacksmithed his own bottle opener that he uses to open up beer, which wouldn't surprise me if he starts crafting on his own too. And then also creating the aluminum cans and packaging it, but then you wouldn't need the bottle opener, so that was dumb. But I loved having him on the show, and I loved him so much that we're doing a part 2 in another week, so get ready for that. Let's do closing statements. Books on the horizon is God of Broken Things by Cameron Johnston. The week after that, I am super excited to be bringing on Christian, a.k.a. Miles Cameron. I know it's confusing with Cameron Johnston and then Christian Cameron. What are the chances of doing 2 authors who both have Cameron in their name? But he's coming on to talk about Cold Iron. Honestly, we could have talked about any of his 43 books. Guy is a fucking workhorse. After that is The Road of Resistance by Chase Bowling. Then after that, hopefully, The Coward by Stephen Aaron. And then I'm hoping for The City of Lies by Sam Hawkey. But let's keep our fingers crossed to make great things happen. Keep on reading or something. Peace.